I deserve to die. And I'm ready for that. I'm ready to take a life. You know, everybody harps at me, I'm a monster, I'm a monster, I'm a monster. They don't know who I am.
The freezer door opened with a dull creak. Inside were several tightly wrapped packages, stacked neatly among spoiled groceries and stained shelves. There were no labels identifying what they were, only a date written in black marker on the tape. July 24th. That date would soon be linked to the last day anyone saw Cassidy Rainwater alive. Weeks earlier, in the remote woods of Dallas County, Missouri, law enforcement officers had been sent to a secluded property along Moon Valley Road. The land was surrounded by dense forest, miles from the nearest town, the kind of place designed to disappear into. The small, run-down structures scattered across the property looked abandoned at first glance, until officers stepped inside one of the sheds. They immediately recognized it. This was the location shown in the images. On September 16th, 2021, the FBI received an anonymous email titled simply, Cassidy. Attached were photographs reportedly found on the dark web. The images were graphic and unmistakable. A woman appeared locked inside an animal cage, partially clothed, visibly distressed. Other images showed her restrained, tortured, and later dead. The sender claimed the woman was Cassidy Rainwater, a 33-year-old mother from Hamilton, Missouri, who had been missing for weeks. The FBI forwarded the tip to the Dallas County Sheriff's Office. By the time investigators finished reviewing the images, they already knew where to go. Cassidy Rainwater had last been seen in late July. She was officially reported missing in August 2021 by a family member who believed she had been staying with a man named James Phelps. His property sat deep in the woods on Moon Valley Road. When deputies first visited Phelps weeks earlier, he admitted Cassidy had been staying with him. He said she was struggling and homeless and that he was simply helping her out. According to him, she left one night without warning, mentioning plans to go to Colorado. He claimed he never saw her again. At the time, there was no evidence to dispute his story. Now, there was. On September 17th, armed officers executed a search warrant at Phelps's property. Inside one of the buildings, they found the cage from the photos. Nearby were restraints, hooks, and a gantry crane typically used to process hunted animals. There was no sign of Cassidy. Digital devices seized from the property contained additional photos and videos, some filmed at night inside a shed. Screaming could be heard in the recordings. Then an investigator opened the refrigerator. DNA testing later confirmed the meat inside belonged to Cassidy Rainwater. James Phelps was arrested on the spot. He refused to speak. 2 days later, authorities arrested Timothy Norton, Phelps' longtime friend and housemate. Norton, a former truck driver, claimed he knew nothing about Cassidy, the cage, or the images. Investigators confronted him with cell phone data, placing him at the property on July 24th. His story changed. Norton admitted he had been there the day Cassidy died. He told investigators that Phelps called him over and asked for help restraining her. Cassidy had been asleep on the floor when they attacked. Norton said he held her legs while Phelps strangled her. After she was dead, they moved her body outside. She was hoisted onto the gantry crane, positioned like hunted game. Phelps dismembered her. The remains were taken inside, placed in the bathtub, and cut into pieces before being stored in the freezer. James Phelps and Timothy Norton had known each other since high school. They lived together on Moon Valley Road for years, isolated from the surrounding communities. Phelps had lived on the property since the early 1990s. Norton had prior minor legal issues, but no history suggesting what investigators would later uncover.
I believe I deserve to die. And I'm ready for that.
Timothy Norton said those words just moments after the end of his court hearing in Dallas County. Until now, he'd been in the Greene County Jail, separate from the other murderer in this case, James Phelps.
Even by accident, it's not right to take a life. Everybody harps at me, I'm a monster, I'm a monster, I'm a monster. They don't know who I am.
Cassidy Rainwater was reported missing in August of 2021 by a family member. They traced her to James Phelps' house on Moon Valley Road, where they found Rainwater's body. Detectives traced messages between Phelps and Norton.
It just kind of happened. Things like I told somebody else once, it kind of went sideways.
Norton said he and Phelps thought Cassidy had stolen things from them and wanted it back. He claims Phelps strangled Cassidy.
The next thing I know, he was choking her and things were going sideways. And if you looked into his eyes, that would have been the last thing you'd ever wanted to do was cross him at that point in time. You know, I know he's got a temper. I know how he works.
Norton was not emotional through his court appearances and says he is still numb.
Maybe later tonight, when I go to sleep, I'll cry. You know, you can talk to my kids. You can talk to my exes. Most of my emotions come out when I'm asleep.
The search of the property lasted weeks. Then, on October 4th, one of the buildings caught fire. Bomb squad technicians discovered multiple tripwires connected to improvised incendiary devices. The property had been booby-trapped. Investigators believe the devices were installed after Cassidy's murder. Much of the remaining evidence was destroyed. Both men were charged with murder and related crimes. Ultimately, both entered plea agreements. The additional charges were dropped, removing the possibility of the death penalty. In April 2023, both James Phelps and Timothy Norton were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. There was no trial. Much of what happened on Moon Valley Road will never be fully known. Cassidy Rainwater was not the first tragedy connected to the area. In 2007, her mother, Tracy Wawasuk, went missing near Lebanon, Missouri, not far from Moon Valley Road. Her body was later found in a field. No arrests were ever made. The similarities would haunt those who followed the case. Cassidy Rainwater struggled in life, but she was a mother trying to rebuild. She trusted the wrong people. James Phelps and Timothy Norton will spend the rest of their lives confined, just as Cassidy was in her final days. The woods along Moon Valley Road are quiet now. What else happened there may never come to light.
For joining us tonight, a guilty plea from one of the men accused of a gruesome murder of a woman in Dallas County, ensuring a life in prison sentence.
James Phelps, who was accused of killing Cassidy Rainwater and keeping her in a cage, pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. Color 10's Carissa Codell is live at the Dallas County Courthouse tonight, getting community reaction.
Yeah, Bailey, Steve, community members I spoke to say this is exactly the outcome they were hoping for. Now they're praying that Cassidy Rainwater's family can find closure.
I'm glad part of this case is over with.
James Phelps, one of the two men accused of murdering Cassidy Rainwater, sentenced today to life in prison. Community members in Dallas County say they are happy to know he will stay behind bars.
Happy, ecstatic, excited. That's what needed to happen.
Sheriff Scott Rice says he hopes to never see a case like this again.
Now this case was type of case is the last case I ever thought we'd ever work in Dallas County. I mean, we have homicides every now and then, but nothing that compares to this. This is something that should happen in a big city, not some small town.
Residents say Phelps deserved at least this sentence.
Well, if that's the best they can do, you know, an eye for an eye, as the book says.
Before this plea, prosecutors were pursuing the death penalty.
But I do believe in the death penalty if you did kill somebody.
Sheriff Rice says this outcome is a relief, and he will continue to pray for the Rainwater family.
This is something that no family should have ever had to deal with, but hopefully they can move on and get some closure from this now.